G'day, I'm Peter from Bundaberg Commercial, and have you ever noticed how different people think differently about money? How the rich people think about money is different to middle class, is different to how poor people think about money. So we're going to talk about that today, and we're also going to finish it off with a little bit of a twist on how you can go from one level up to the next one in a pretty quick and easy way. It won't be a long video today, so hang on, we're not going to be here for a long time, it's going to be here for a good time. So the first thing you need to recognize is that people think about money in different ways. Now, for a poor person, they think in regards to, okay, next week's wage is going to pay last week's bills. They think of money purely as a tool in order to pay their bills. And they will have a mindset that goes along the lines of, okay, how would they think about money? All right, it's dirty, filthy, rich people, stinking money. Money makes the world go around is probably about as positive as they can go. But they really have negative thoughts about what money can actually do and what money is. So what about the middle class? The middle class has a different way of looking at money. The middle class actually look at it as a way of getting a credit rating. Now, bear with me for a minute. So what do I mean by middle class think of it as money as a way of getting a good credit? Well, the middle class essentially want to buy stuff, and quite often stuff that they don't need and maybe not even want. They may want to keep up with the Joneses and get the new car, get the new boat, get the new outfits and the shoes, go on the holidays. It's all about getting stuff, and it's usually on debt. So they use money in order to try and maintain their debt coverage and to keep a credit rating so that their credit cards don't bounce next time they go shopping. Now, what about the third type of person? What about the rich people? What do they actually think about money? Now, if you've actually sat down and spent time talking with some rich people, and I mean rich people as in those who don't need to work and have got well over $1 million worth of cash in the bank, that sort of type aspect. Well, firstly, they wouldn't have $1 million cash in the bank because they believe that money is all about being a tool to make more money. So they don't generally spend it on things. They don't generally pay bills with it. They use the interest on what they get from their money and their investments to make more money. One example of this is if you think of King Solomon. Solomon, in the Bible terms, was the wisest and richest man in the world, and he was absolutely loaded. Gold castles, you've got anything you could possibly think of living kingdom, 50 wives. That must have cost him a fortune in itself. But he used money to do things like build a merchant fleet. So he gets a lot of goods coming from overseas, which they then traded on. He had huge agricultural interests. He had huge farming interests. He had huge trade interests. He had construction crews. He had building projects. And everything he did, everything he touched was generally focused on making more money for him. And that's how a rich person thinks. So now we understand the different mindsets, but how do you get from being one to the other? Look, I really liked the book I read from Clausen, and it was called The Richest Man in Babylon. His philosophy was simple. He set aside 10% of his income, and they used that for business investments. I used that concept to get my recent book published. So I had set aside 10% of the commissions that I got from my work and put that into a separate account, didn't touch it for anything unless it was for editing, typesetting, printing, distributing, marketing, anything to do with the book. Now the book is starting to get sales. That money goes back into that account to make me more money on another project. That is one easy way to do it. And you'll get that constant thought of putting money aside for making more money in all sorts of aspects. If you are aware of the story of Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers. Obviously didn't get on with his brothers. They made movies about it. It was Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat is one aspect if you want to try and get some sort of reference. But it's actually a biblical character. And what he did, he got to the stage of a series of events to being second in Egypt only to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh says, you run my kingdom. You have obviously got the gift of making money and being wise, so you run my kingdom. And he explained that there was going to be a massive drought. So what they had done is he set aside 14% of anything that was manufactured or produced in Egypt, be that farms, grain, very much in grain, built new silos, kept them all organised. And then when the drought really hit and really made it hard, he started selling the grain that he had in the silos for huge prices and made Pharaoh even richer than he ever was before. So 14% was a seventh. Clawson looks at 10%. I think if you look at the Jewish business models, they look about 12%. But the main point is, set aside some money, don't touch it for anything, and only use it for one particular project that works on making you more money. All right, nice short video. Some things in life are simple, but it takes discipline, and that is the hard part. But I wish you success. Set yourself aside. Find yourself an account that hasn't been used before, or put it in a jar. Just make sure it's not easily accessed. If you find it too easy to access the funds, then you're just going to use it. But you want to make sure you use it to produce more money and get yourself into the mindset and the lifestyle of the rich, and maybe not famous, unless you want to be famous. Speaking of being famous, hit that like and subscribe buttons for me, because I'd love to be able to get this message out to other people on YouTube. Thanks for your time. Take care and God bless.